Central Park. 843 acres of trees, meadows, and shimmering waters sequestered from Manhattan's jungle of glass, concrete, and steel. It's New York's second most frequented tourist attraction, but there's a reason New Yorkers call it their backyard. 70% of the park's daily visitors live in the city. From summertime picnics to winter strolls and visiting our favorite places, New Yorkers love Central Park, which is why this upset us so much.
You can see the Central Park Precinct has posted this electronic sign here in the park asking for witnesses to last night's terrible accident.
Investigators look into speeding cyclists in Central Park. 2 pedestrians have been hit and killed, and right now police are cracking down, but is it really making a difference?
Bono crashed in a high-energy bicycle accident when he attempted to avoid another rider in Central Park on Sunday.
Today it was a free-for-all. Bicyclists failing to stop for red lights, pedicabs doing the same, and pedestrians who crossed against the light.
In 1811, a master city plan was adopted to help New York grow into a bustling city. It cast Manhattan's well-known grid across the island, swallowing its green space. By 1857, New Yorkers were hungry for a park. Frederick Law Olmsted, a farmer and writer, and Calvert Vaux, an architect, won the design competition to bring them one.
They really wanted to create this naturalistic setting so that people could enter into the park and forget about the fact that there was a busy city not that far from that.
Even in the late 1850s, the designers were concerned about the safety of pedestrians. They detested the dangerous street crossings in Lower Manhattan and knew that the park would have to accommodate horse-drawn carriages, riders on horseback, and pedestrians.
The bridges that are in Central Park were put there to separate foot traffic from carriage traffic, and at the time, bridle trails. And people are now crossing the streets where that was never something that was intended to happen.
Since its construction, the way we use Central Park has changed, as has its transportation infrastructure. In 1934, a man named Robert Moses became New York City's park commissioner. He brought with him a new priority for our city.
Unless we launch a new program, a much larger program, we're going to face a situation where we can't accommodate the output of cars.
Where originally pedestrians were king in the park, for Moses, the car was king. And so he wound up making several changes to the original carriage paths.
One of those changes happened near the mall, the park's elm-lined promenade. Featured in several movies such as Kramer vs. Kramer, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and Made in Manhattan, it was designed as a place to mix and mingle. The northern side of the mall is home to Bethesda Terrace. Probably the park's best-known arch, it overlooks Emma Stebbins' Angel of the Water sculpture, another park favorite.
Today, we all rave about the Bethesda Terrace, which is absolutely beautiful. But just on the opposite end of the mall, there was Marble Arch, and it was really something to behold.
Built with marble from a Westchester quarry, the arch met the walking trail at its southern entrance and delivered pedestrians north to the mall by 2 grand staircases. The interior was lined with marble benches, a stone drinking fountain, and a semicircular grotto. The arch didn't fit into Moses' plans to expand the roadway for better vehicle access, and was partly collapsed and covered with dirt, leaving behind one of the park's most dangerous crosswalks.
It was a very, very beautiful way to get people across the street and keep them away from carriage traffic.
Another Moses casualty was Outset Arch. Made of cast iron and ornamental, slender twisting spandrels, it was one of 3 arches added to the park by Calvert Vaux in 1873 to improve traffic flow. But the nearby menagerie, soon to be redubbed the Central Park Zoo, was showing signs of fatigue.
The cages that the animals were in were not very sturdy, and so rather than building stronger cages, the politicians decided that it was best for men with guns to stand outside the cages and ensure that the lions or the tigers didn't escape.
Moses built stronger cages, but also expanded the zoo, swallowing up the nearby bridle trails and Outset Arch in the process. And more changes were still to come.
Moses felt that what people needed were elements of active recreation, ways that they could have fun. And so he introduced a lot of those to Central Park.
Moses was on a building spree. Determined to give New Yorkers things to do, he tore out more bridle trail and converted an informal sports and leisure area called the Playground into the Heckscher Ball Field, leaving another arch in his wake, the quaint Oval Arch. North of Heckscher Ball Fields, he had plans for the Green, where at the time about 200 sheep lived. Every night, the flock walked from the Green across the street to the sheepfold. Moses would put an end to this, converting their home into Tavern on the Green. Today, the former Green is called Sheep Meadow. At any given time on a busy summer day, you'll find about 30,000 New Yorkers gathering here to soak up the sun. To get to the Meadow, they must cross one of the park's most dangerous crosswalks.
You have Tavern on the Green, one of the most famous restaurants in New York City, something that attracts lots of tourists. So there are locations in the park that are now heavily frequented by people that were never there before.
Further north, a team of 1,000 workers demolished a defunct 31-acre receiving reservoir. Built prior to the park, the rectangular structure stored emergency drinking water, but had been deemed unnecessary 17 years earlier. In its place, Moses would build the Great Lawn, a sprawling meadow with incorporated baseball diamonds and nearby playgrounds. Over the years, it would host crowds in the hundreds of thousands for artists including Simon and Garfunkel, Elton John, Diana Ross, and Andrea Bocelli. Nearby, Moses built Turtle Pond and eventually the Delacorte Theater, home to Shakespeare in the Park.
We have created a huge draw for people, and now they have to cross the street.
The crosswalk to get to these locations, just inside the park from 81st Street and Central Park West, has been deemed the most dangerous crosswalk in Central Park by the Department of Transportation. 160 years ago, Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux knew Central Park's roads would become too dangerous for pedestrians. But 50 years after Robert Moses retired, we've all but forgotten the arches they built to protect us.
Our solution is to take some bridges and put them into the park in those places. And not just any bridges, but bridges which were originally in the park.
New York should restore Marble Arch to its natural home at the base of the Central Park Mall and retrofit reconstructed versions of Outset Arch and Oval Arch to the park's other problem areas. In some parts of the park, archways already exist relatively close to crosswalks. New York should revise pathways that were hastily added in modern times, allowing pedestrians once again to cross the street safely.
I think that this is something that not only will save people's lives, but adds beauty to the park, that gives us something to be excited about and something to see, and not just any beauty, but something that was historic and something that was taken from us. I mean, this is part of our legacy as New Yorkers. To have this big, beautiful archway in the lower section of the park that's just buried below our surface. I feel like digging that up is a pretty exciting thing.
For more information, visit centralparkarchproject.org to sign our petition and donate to our cause. Together, we can make the park a safer and more beautiful place.